Welcome to everyone tuning into tonight's episode of Ask a Professor. I'm John Ellerbach, filling in for Josh Boyd. Joining me tonight is Randy Roberts from the College of Liberal Arts and Brian Smith, also from the College of Liberal Arts. So let's start with some introductions. Randy, tell us about yourself.
I am Randy Roberts. I have been here, this is my 29th year at Purdue, 29 great years. I came to Purdue from Texas, and the biggest course I teach at Purdue is a course on World War II. And I also teach sports history. I do most of my writing on sports history, popular culture, film history, Jack Johnson, Joe Louis, John Wayne, and more.
I see a few pugilists in there.
Oh yeah, and Muhammad Ali, and Jack Dempsey.
Brian, tell us about your background.
Well, my name is Brian Smith, and I have been here for 5 years in the Brian Lamb School of Communication, teaching public relations and advertising and social media. A little about me, I spent the last semester actually living in Austria. I was on Fulbright, so I had a chance to do some fun research teaching with students out in Austria and across Europe. So.
And every summer you take students elsewhere too, right?
I do. I take students to Barcelona every summer, a study abroad program. So
that'll happen again.
It will happen again.
Put another shrimp on the Barbie for me.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Austria.
Yeah. There are no kangaroos in Austria.
It's from Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump into things and get started with our first question.
Why do doctors call what they do practice?
Why do doctors call what they do practice? Now, I know medical doctors do, but doctors of philosophy, etc., they don't practice. Randy?
Wow, that's a good question. Maybe they fail too often, and they're not professionals yet. They're not perfect. So I guess when we give lectures, we could call lectures practice because they're always we're always trying to make something more of it. We're always trying to hope we'll do better than we did the last time. So I guess what we do has an element of practice to it.
It's actually quite funny because what you said is that they are professionals, but they're learning. But if they're professionals, they don't say that they profess, they practice. And yet we as professors profess. So we could switch things around and say that we practice and they profess, I guess.
Boy, I hope we don't profess too much. I hope we speculate. I hope we give informed opinions.
Well, we cogitate, we extrapolate, we do all those things, and in the final analysis, some people come out educated. Have you found that to be true?
Yes. And a lot of it is they educate themselves. Okay. The students that do the best are the students that get excited about the course, that read maybe a little bit extra, pay a little bit more attention. Mm-hmm. But it's not what we're doing. We're offering something, but there's got to be a receptor out there. That's
pretty exciting when that happens. I know it's happened to you.
Yeah. And I think I'll agree with you, but I'll add something to that. I think we do bring stuff in. Students can sit there and read books, and we can assign books to read and text, but I don't think they learn anything until they start actually practicing, right? And we bring the word back in.
So there's the practice part.
Yeah, but we bring, at least in the Brian Lamb School and some of the classes we do, we bring in companies where they can actually do stuff. Or when I take students at Barcelona, they do stuff for companies in Barcelona. And so they're kind of practicing to perfect the art or whatnot, but once they start doing stuff is when they start learning.
Yeah.
So before we answer more questions tonight, let's take a quick commercial break.
Where can I get a degree that will give me a theoretical knowledge but help me to apply it?
That the curriculum is different from most of the other colleges on campus.
It's all hands-on. I get to do a lot of lab work. I get to work with stuff. I get to make things.
You're always working with your hands and you're actually doing the stuff instead of sitting in a classroom just hearing about all of it.
You get to know professors and other staff on an individual level.
Willing to do anything they can to help you succeed.
one-on-one learning experiences, focus on problem solving, how to learn, how to think.
Actually having clients and actually working with them.
My internship was with Apparatus Infrastructure Services.
Internship with Procter & Gamble.
I'm doing an internship this summer at Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance.
When I went to my internship, it was so easy to apply what I learned in class.
I'm in my capstone project. It's kind of like a senior design. End of the year, I'm graduating. Let's see what I can do with all of the things that I've learned.
Extremely diverse.
It's a very global and diverse environment.
We're in smaller classes. We get to work on our own projects very often.
Finding this team, this perfect team.
I've really enjoyed learning a lot more about proper persuasive techniques.
I've gained so many leadership skills.
I've become really good at actually giving oral presentations now.
And I've really sort of come out of my shell.
I can utilize both of these majors and get well-rounded in these areas.
If you're thinking about coming to Purdue Polytechnic, do it.
Purdue has so many opportunities for you.
You're going to grow not only just by your academics and your skills, but you're going to grow as a person.
I want to be that person that inspires a child to go in technology.
You just have so many opportunities here that you're not going to find anywhere else.
Welcome back. Let's hear our second question of the night.
What's the meaning of life?
Whoa. Well, I know it's a Monty Python film. I've seen it several times. We'll start with the sagacious among us, who will now tell us in 50 words or less the meaning of life. Brian?
Oh, wow, those are some deep. That's a deep question. That's a big one. So if you think about the meaning of life, a lot of people think we're here to do something, to achieve something great. Mm-hmm. Frankly, I think that we can look at two things from the meaning of life perspective. I think we're here to do things good, do things great, but more importantly to become. I think it's a do and become thing. What are we becoming by our actions? What are we setting up for ourselves? Who are we at the end of the day? So I think it's more about becoming than doing.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. My first reaction is to give you a Monty Python or a Spinal Tap, have a good time all the time type of answer to it. But
be careful.
But there's two things. What is a meaning of life? Mm-hmm. I have no idea. What is a meaningful life? May be a better way to frame that question. What is a meaningful life? A life with impact. A life with excitement, a life that has challenges, intellectual, and any sort of challenge that you can think of.
And I think one thing we could throw into that, I think that's a really great perspective. We could say with meaningful, what leads to meaningful, right? A lot of people think we're here to be entertained or we're here to be happy. I like the word joy. I think we're here to have joy. And I think joy comes from more than just, I had a fun time at Disney or whatever. I think joy is about having that meaning, building that meaning with people, serving others, finding and affecting change within your communities and within the world. I think you get joy from that kind of thing. I think that's what life is about.
Well, and I certainly get joy from vicariously participating in the successes of our students. I see many of them do good things and grow, and they contact me and tell me what's going on with their professions. And so there is something important and deep about this vicarious participation in somebody else's success.
Yeah. I think we're all teachers. We love our students. The interaction with the students, the dealing with students, going to class and lecturing to students has helped keep me a little bit younger. It has certainly given me joy. I can say this, never once in my life have I ever thought, I wish I had done something else. I wish I had had a different job. Never once has it bothered me, or have I ever thought that this isn't the job that I was put here for.
That's rare, I think. Of some of my students tell me, you're very fortunate, even though they know at their age that you're very fortunate to find something you love and continue to do it.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be right back after a message from our sponsors.
Wow. Escapes to the end zone. Touchdown, Oilers. Noah Bentley to just make a play in the backfield.
What are we doing for life? What are you doing with your life? Boilermakers forge a revolution for humanity. Research to stop cancer. Knowledge to spark a business. Hands-on learning to heal the real world. When you're open to being a change maker, willing to work harder to transform lives, then you're ready to make life better. Health and Human Sciences at Purdue University.
It starts with the belief that we can do more. Go beyond our borders.
Purdue University.
It starts with the belief that we can do more. Go beyond our borders.
Purdue University.
I was only walking through your neighborhood, saw you light on honey in the cold. I stood. Anywhere I go, there you are. Anywhere I go, there you are. I've been getting used to waking up with you. I've been getting used to waking up here. Anywhere I go, there you are. Go, there you are. There you are. There you are. You're the fire and the flood, and I always feel you in my blood. Everything is fine.
Which is my word of the day, and it will be on the exam. Let's start here with Randy.
How is the world going to end?
Uh-huh.
You know, I think of that, the classic line, of course, is with a bang, or with a whimper, not a bang, but a bang, not a whimper. You know, I think of the great Yeats poem about the second coming, where it starts off, how does it start off? Turning in a widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer, things fall apart, center cannot hold, mere anarchy is lost in the world. And then it has, you know, it has, to me, a really compelling line where it goes something like, the best lack all conviction while the worst are full of passionate intensity. And sometimes when I look at the world today, I think of that line, you know, the best lack all conviction while the worst are full of passionate intensity. And I think if it's going to end, passionate intensity misplaced is going to be part of it.
Ooh. Brian, let's hear some passionate intensity. Do you agree with that? And
doggy downer.
Wow.
Hey, you know, I do actually agree with that. I think passion to the end, intensity to the end. I think that's a good thought. But we have to ask ourselves, you know, what does the end actually mean? We keep saying, how does the world end? Well, maybe our world ends. Maybe there's a sense that things keep going, right? You quote some great poetry. I quote Jurassic Park, and you know, life finds a way to survive. And I think that in spite of the challenges and the absolute you know, destruction that we see across the world, life will find a way to survive. Does the world have to end, right? It might end as we know it, but it'll change, right? It's dynamic.
And we are hoping it's with human beings who evolve, who develop to a point where they don't want to hurt each other. And so it's not ending with the cockroaches controlling a burned out planet, but if it does end, it ends with a lot of togetherness. That might sound hippie-ish from my era, but it makes more sense than saying blown up and cockroaches rule. Yes.
It's a good question. I mean, we don't like to think about the end, don't we?
No.
The reality is,
no.
And this is depressing as hell. The reality is the world ends for everybody. Okay.
Yeah.
At some point, it ends. The world's not ending, but for an individual, which is significant. So, boy, I wish we had a happier question than that.
Well, but you also have to ask yourself, it's the world or our world, right?
Yeah,
so
okay.
our world or our civilization may end, but that doesn't mean we have to end, right? How do we propagate our stories? How do we make sure our stories live on? You research history, right? The importance of the story carrying on in spite of a civilization or a world ending. We've seen that throughout history, that people's worlds have ended.
Yeah.
But we have the some of the most minutest details because people tell their story and they continue that story and they ensure to carry it on and share it with those who go on after them. So I think that maybe we can even prevent our world from ending if we continue to tell the stories and we make a good story, right? That's the idea. As you were saying, John, that if we have a world that ends, let's hope we end it together. Let's hope that we maybe even together we can make it continue, right? And that is hold hands and sing. Everyone buy the world a Coke, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Kumbaya, all that stuff.
Oh,
but
yeah.
actually behind it, there's some very good sentiment, which is, I'm optimistic.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how Mad Men ended, right?
Oh, I never watched the end of that.
Oh,
I got tired
the last
of it.
scene was
Spoiler alert, sorry.
I got tired of it. I don't care how it ended.
It's a Coke commercial.
Oh.
It's that great commercial he's thinking about and he's creating, that great commercial where all the people of the world actually come together and share a Coke.
I dropped out at about the third, I was going to say semester, the third year when Don Draper just got to be too much of a philanderer. I don't care what happened, but if you thought it was a good show, then you ended. How long did it last?
So I don't know, 7 seasons or so? I don't know.
So a lot of things end, including shows, but...
And sometimes it's when shows end, that's the end of our world too, right?
Or romances, things like that. So many songs, so many great love songs. My world has ended because you ain't in it. That might be a hit. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's copyrighted, by the way.
Yeah, I'd keep your day job.
Oh. Well, we're going to hear our final question after this final commercial break, so stay with us.
Their place on Saturday where we fight for them on Spike, but that's always up for grabs.
They're not taking it.
Knowing that when we play them, we're getting their best game, and knowing that when we beat them, we beat the best version of IU.
Well, it's always fun just because, it's rivalry week, so, anytime any sport team is going up against Indiana, it's always, you get extra excited for it just because of that pride, that Purdue pride.
We are Boilermakers, and even though we're considered Hoosiers in a way, we are state of Indiana. We're not real Hoosiers, we're Boilermakers.
They're going to bring their A game.
Last year we played them in Mackey.
The Mackey match was insane.
It's about 520, super high intensity, super passionate.
So they're going to come ready to play.
So the Brian Lamb School of Communication has a long tradition as a department of communication originally, so well over 100-year tradition.
There has been communication here in the teaching of speech and organizational communication and other things for decades.
We have a very vibrant, I think, curriculum for our students in 5 different areas of communication.
It's everything from human relations and communication about relationships to public relations to communication within organizations to video production.
I think we attract really a variety of students who are interested in learning about communication skills, but then also being able to use those skills in a variety of settings.
Students have a lot of chances to get real, practical, applied experience, hands-on learning.
The classes that I've taken have definitely helped me grow in the career that I want, and I could not imagine taking any of these classes anywhere else.
I think a great part of our curriculum is when we have alumni who come back to classes and talk to students.
The networking is incredible through this program. We're all over the nation and even all over the world. I've actually had an internship where a Purdue grad was working there full time, and it was at Warner Brothers Studios.
I think when people hear about Purdue University, their first thoughts are probably engineering and astronauts. I'd like for students who aren't necessarily interested in being astronauts or engineers to also think about Purdue, but in terms of the Brian Lamb School of Communication.
Also very excited to see what my future holds because of Purdue, and I know I'm fully prepared because of the Brian Lamb School.
Welcome back. Time to hear our final question.
What advice would you give your previous or current boss?
Whoa, advice to a former or current boss. The term boss to me is sometimes bothersome, although a boss works for me if I respect that person, and there were a couple in my past I respected very much, and there were a few I respected. We'll leave it at that, okay? Let's start with you, Randy. Bosses?
Well, first of all, I would like to think that one of the great things about a profession is I'm not sure I really have a boss. Okay, I have colleagues, and I have colleagues as the head of a department. I have colleagues that are dean. I have colleagues as president of the university. But I have people who make decisions, obviously. I would start with two things. Number one, listen. Okay.
I'm sorry, what?
Listen.
Oh, okay.
Listen. That somebody may have a better idea than you.
That was a bad boss.
Listen to other people say, okay, I see what you're doing. It was delayed. It was delayed.
You got it now.
It's listen to the people who you are lording over. Okay, no, listen to your other colleagues. And then secondly, make a decision. Okay.
The boss.
The boss has to make a decision. I'm not a real believer that the best rule comes from consensus. At some point, you listen to different opinions, you listen to, quite frankly, different agendas, and then you have to make the decision. I've worked under a number of different administrators, and I used to think when I came into the profession that what I did really wasn't affected by them that much. And I was young and stupid then, and I'm a little bit older now, maybe still. Anyway, my point is my life has been dramatically improved by good administrators. And they've been administrators who have made decisions and who have listened.
Brian, you've been in academia how long now?
About 9 years.
Okay. And from what I've seen in the academic world, there is a clamor from the professors to have consensus. And I think some of them are resentful when their, quote, administrators get too dictatorial. What do you think?
Well, I kind of go back to a former life. In a former life, I worked in the practice, speaking of practice again, I worked in the practice, I was a managing editor for a magazine. And this magazine focused on leadership. So you mentioned the word boss. I don't like the word boss either. It connotes a bad image. But focus a lot on leaders and leadership in what we published. And a lot of research. There's this one book that came out by Jim Collins several years ago called Good to Great. And he did some research with his graduate students, and he was trying to figure out what makes a good company, right? From going from good to great, what makes a great company? And they went through the process, and the graduate students through the research found out that it was a good leader. He said, no. I'm not accepting that answer. That's wrong. Go back, do it again. And they did more research, and they came back and said, it is the leader. And so out of that, we find that whether you're an administrator, whether you're a boss, or whether you're a student in a campus organization, right? It's being a good leader. Now, what are the things that make a good leader?
I was going to ask that.
Oh, hey, you want to switch chairs?
Brian, what are the things that make a good leader?
I think number one is what they call the mirror or the window principle. And that is, as a leader, are you looking out at your constituents, those who follow you, and telling them what to do? Or are you looking at the mirror and saying, what am I doing wrong, right? Now, many of us would say, well, obviously the mirror is the way you're supposed to go. But if you just look at the mirror at all times, you can't tell what anyone else is doing either. And so it's this back and forth, look in the mirror, look in the window, and figure out how to balance the two. That's my first thought.
Have you ever wanted to be an administrator, Randy?
No, I am
Never,
extraordinarily happy with what I'm doing now. Because administrators deal with a lot of problems, and my life's happy. But
not us. We're not the problems.
I think of, to me, a great leader. I teach World War II, so a great leader is Dwight Eisenhower. And Eisenhower was called in right after Pearl Harbor. Sunday after Pearl Harbor, he said to report to the War Department for your new job. Yeah. And he goes, and he figures they're going to give him a job, and the secretary says, the general will see you in a second. So he goes in and he sees George Marshall, commander of American forces, leading commander. And Marshall said to him, look, he gives him I'll make this quick, he gives him a complete rundown on what's going on in the world. What's going on in the Pacific, what's going on in the Philippines, in Okinawa, different areas. And then he says to him, what would you do? What should we do? What should be our course of action? And Eisenhower took a time and he wrote some things out and he presented a really good plan. And he became Marshall's man. Marshall was looking for certain things in terms of leadership. He was looking for a person that was not a micromanager, a person who could delegate authority and then trust the person to do authority. He was looking for a person that didn't get too high, didn't get too low. He wasn't looking for a person who was looking for promotions. That he had a whole list of characteristics that Eisenhower ended up filling. Mm-hmm. And that leadership quality would have been a good university president, it would be a good dean, it would be a good editor of a magazine, those characteristics.
Ike is your paragon of bossicity or whatever the noun is. Who's yours?
I've got a lot of heroes that I think were good leaders. You can go from everything from biblical. Moses was a fantastic leader. I'm a huge fan of Churchill. I'm a fan of World War II. I think he was an amazing leader in his ability to put others first. And I think it comes down to that a good leader does put others first.
Okay, this is just a tough one because some people distinguish between leadership and being a boss. And I think you're right. Being a boss or whenever any position you're in, sometimes you have to make decisions that aren't popular. It's not always a popularity contest. Churchill went through, he was basically an outcast for a while before he came back, particularly after Gallipoli. So you've got people Nixon was another one, who had a renewal of his life. And so, Churchill would be maybe a good boss, I don't know. Nixon would not be one for me.
But if you roll by consensus, that means you're not standing for anything. You're basically, let's take a vote.
Yeah.
Okay. And of course, consensus isn't vote. You're never going to get consensus in an academic situation. But
do we agree on that? No.
But it's also, consensus is also shifting responsibility, right?
Yes. And that's why I say you have to make a decision eventually.
Yeah. What it all comes down to is your ability to actually take the action, right? Do it.
I'm taking action right now, and I'm saying I'd like to thank you for tuning into this week's episode, where members of the community get to ask questions that they've been dying to ask a professor, and we've certainly had some. I think we've pretty much determined what the meaning of life is, what a good boss is. We've pretty much done it all. So this is your program to go to whenever you need inspiration. I'd like to thank Professor Randy Roberts and Professor Brian Smith for coming tonight. I'm John Ellerbach. Tune in next week.